What's up guys? In this video we are covering not safe for work. Not safe for work. What's the horniest thing you've ever done? Please consider subscribing if you like the video. Matched with a girl on Match.com way back when it was all website and email only. Anyways, matched with this girl in first conversation. By some miracle, we agreed that she was gonna come over that night, go right to my bedroom, bang, and she'd leave. Well, that's exactly what happened. Both happy. Roughly a month later, I'm walking into a company for a job interview and one of the interviewers was her. Got the job. Fapped with a Halloween monster glove. I enjoyed the hell out of it, but lost those gloves. I was at my grandparents' house, sharing a room with my sibling, and all 4 other bedrooms were full of sleeping family members. I was so horny I went into the bathroom to be quiet about it. Thing about girls is, super horny equals super wet equals can't feel friction plus clit is so sensitive it's an overload equals no orgasm. Was a very frustrated swamp. I went to go meet a girl on her last night before she moved to a different state so she could suck my dong. She really wanted to for some reason. I'm parked at her apartment waiting for her to come into my car. As I'm waiting, she asks for a pic of my hard dong. So I jack off a little to get hardened. I end up coming in like 10 seconds, so I turn my phone off and drive home before she ever gets to my car. I was so ashamed, lol. Went on a road trip with my family once when I was like 12 or 13. My parents are in the front. My brother and sister are sitting in the middle seat of our mid-sized SUV and I'm in the back. Each of the kids takes a turn getting the back row to themselves to stretch out a little until the next pee, gas, snacks break. So naturally during my nap time in the back I jerked off under a blanket with zero material and just jizzed into my underwear and spat in it like the filthy animal I was. Jacked off in the ocean. I was on holiday with my mum and we were sharing a room. I took a late evening dip and was curious to see if I could jack off while my dong was underwater. Since I hadn't done it for the past week, I nutted pretty quickly then just kind of swam around for a bit. This is a repost. I went to a woman's house, late at night, in rural upstate NY. We had been talking to each other via email at the time, about 1997. We met via Yahoo Personals. Neither of us knew what the other looked like. Not everyone had a scanned picture. I went over at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. I didn't have a roommate at the time. Went into a completely dark house, located in the woods, and had sex with a woman whom I had known for a couple of weeks with just several phone calls between us. When the morning came, we were both attracted to each other. We ended up dating for almost a year. It worked out, but seriously, it was a stupid thing to do. Whacked off to a CVS weekly ad. Came up with the bright idea of using Icy Hot to enhance my jerk session. I was 13. Don't recommend. Probably jerked off in the back seat while on a family road trip. Not my proudest moment. Was 12 or 13 and just discovered masturbation about a week before. Drove 3 hours to frick a random girl I added on Snapchat. Never met her in person until I drove to frick her. It was awkward until my dong was inside her. I made a woman out of clothes and a styrofoam head and made out with her. SMH I was 12. Jerked off into a random dirty cup I found in a parking lot. Was sexting a girl and got too turned on to make it home. Parked in the lot. Found some litter. And bust in it. 19-year-old wanted to frick so badly that, after going out with this really great girl, I convinced her we should park on a less visible side road to talk. Turns out less visible roads have less visible ditches on the sides and there goes my car into the ditch. Now we are stranded in the middle of the night. In the middle of nowhere. She takes her shoes off and tells me to go outside and push and hops in the driver's seat. And so I did. I did push. 8 years later I'm still pushing whatever she tells me to. My mom went shopping at JCPenney and I was waiting in the car. I was about 13 and I was horny ASF. She had some tissues in the car and I jerked off into them. I didn't want to litter so I just put them in my pocket till I got home. Jerked off in every room in the house in one day. Wrote a fanfic between me and Freddy Krueger. Fricked a couch. Jerked off in my middle school bathroom. And before you say anything, I was in middle school at the time. Oh, I also found a box of Playboys stashed in a bathroom closet at a storage building. Laid all the centerfolds out. and went to town. My college roommate ended up being a week late to orientation. In that week, I met and got the Skype details of an online dom, and she had me edge a whole night and only finished by wrapping a lanyard tightly around myself and finishing to her rubbing grapes on her nipples. Edged for 6 hours in one sitting. Running to a convenience store at 3 a.m. with a guy I just met to buy condoms and 2 bottles of Gatorade so we could do it on an air mattress in the living room of my sister's house at 3 a.m. Back in high school, one time I jerked off 11 times in one day, between 6 a.m. and 1 a.m. My dong was in so much pain and I couldn't move for a day or so. Don't do that. I lost my virginity in the dormitory kitchen at 3 a.m. We didn't have any other place to do it, 'cause my roommates were sleeping in my room. The kitchen is shared by the entire floor, 80 students on each floor, and we were butt naked with clothes thrown all over the kitchen. Thanks God nobody wanted any midnight snack. Cycled for 4 hours to get to a woman's home in India who had matched with me on Tinder. The chat got very heated quickly and she wanted to frick a white guy. The reason I cycled was because I was on a round the world bike trip. Amazingly, it was completely legit and we pretty much had sex on and off for 24 hours. And we were having sex within 10 minutes of seeing each other for the first time. I cannot describe how horny I was getting messages from her as I got closer and closer to her home. Drove an hour in to see a girl I had previously made out with, because she said she needed a frick buddy for the night. Got to her place around 9, hung out with her and her roommate for a little bit, then went to the bedroom. She totally shut down my attempts to initiate anything physical and said it was just the alcohol talking earlier and that she was not DTF at all. So we just cuddled for a bit and fell asleep. At 3 a.m. she wakes up and runs out of the room. I'm like, okay, what the frick, and then go back to sleep. Next thing I know, she turns on the lights and tells me to get out. Had a very long drive in total confusion back to my place. Got home at 4:30 a.m. Virginity still 100% intact. One time when I went to church, I excused myself to the bathroom and went used the fastest hand in the Wild West so I could nut and get back in a few minutes. Use a rubber glove and a roll of toilet paper. Put the rubber glove inside the roll, put lubricant and use it as a flashlight. A girl who I never thought in a million years would want to invited me to dinner at her home with her parents. We were in high school at the time, diff schools, and had been talking, dating, but nothing more than kissing at the time. I had no car, so she picked me up and she lived in a straight-up mansion. Her father, who I thought was a lawyer, apparently did something for the government. I was clearly dating up as far as social standards go. Dinner went well. Parents loved me. I was riding high when they asked if I'd mind staying and watching a movie with them. Mom, Dad had one couch and me. Date had other. I'm on my best behavior when Date lays her head on my lap. God damn it. It's dark. Other than the movie, Date grabs a couch pillow and somewhat puts it on my lap, but mostly blocks her parents' view of her head, my area. You can guess what she was going for, but I kept trying to play it cool and block her. I felt it was so obvious and I wanted her parents to keep liking me and not try to kill me and chase me out of their house and all that. Well, once I got a little excited, I didn't seem to care as much. All I did was focus on not moving and keeping my face as normal as possible. I don't remember what the hell movie we were watching, but her parents must have been freaking captivated. That or they were the weirdest, most polite parents I'd ever met. I gave the 3 courteous 10-second warning taps and she made no other notion of acknowledgement other than squeeze my leg. I don't know how my eyes didn't roll to the back of my head, let alone off my face. She zipped my pants back up, laid back down, as if nothing had happened. I felt like I was watching someone else's life play out, but it was me. Since it was late, Dad offered to take me home. I got nervous and kissed my date on the cheek as we left. Dad let me drive his brand new Cadillac, all the while telling me he was so glad his daughter found such a nice young man. I felt a twinge of guilt, but overall like I had just gotten away with some kind of bank robbery. When I was about 15, I got an erection so intense that I was screaming in pain. This was before I figured out what masturbation was, so I had no way to relieve the pressure. I jacked off to TV commercials just to see if I could. They weren't even sexual or hot in the slightest, but I still busted a nut before my show came back on. When I was 19, I had a huge crush on a friend of my brother's. We were all hanging out at my brother's house one night. Bro goes to bed and I realized his friend was into me too. So we made out and talked 4 hours. And agreed it was a good thing that we were at my brother's house and wouldn't be able to hook up so we could just get to know each other better and not move too fast. A few minutes later I looked at him and said, "Oh, we could just have sex in my car." Drove around the corner at 3 a.m. to a dirt parking lot and fricked in the backseat. Turned into a 2-year relationship, though. Memories. In high school I was in band, and I played the saxophone. Anyway, one night I was super horny and my Pinot magazines were not at home at the time as I let my friend borrow them. This was a time before phones, so I couldn't go online and get some hardcore pin straight away. Long story short, I stuck my dong in the saxophone and rode it. My husband and my first date lasted 3 days. The only time we went outside was to get more condoms and some Gatorade and snacks from around the corner. It took us a week to have a real date, because we'd end up just jumping in bed and would never even make it out the door. Edited to add. A lot of people are asking about Gatorade and condoms. Gatorade is a drink made with sugar and electrolytes. It gives you energy and tastes really good when you've been exercising and sweating a lot. Sex is a workout and a lot of sex makes you really dehydrated. Condoms are, because you should always practice safe sex and change condoms as soon as the person with the peanuts ejaculate. Most people don't have huge amounts of Gatorade or condoms at their house, which is why so many people had to pause sex to go get them. My ex was getting a little handsy under the covers with my tackle while we were watching TV at her parents' place. Her parents are in the kitchen and wouldn't you know it, some of their family friends showed up. Well, somehow nobody noticed. They left and her parents went to bed while we watched Polar Express. I finger banged her while her parents were sleeping on the other side of the wall about 30 feet away. To combat my post-period horniness, I tired drawing one not safe for work image. I filled up a whole 100-page sketchbook in a day and a half. Dry humping while making out at the back of my school, 11:30 p.m. About 16 years ago, I had just gone through a really bad breakup. You know, the kind where you still frick for a few months afterwards, and neither of you feel good about it. My ex went to see her sister for a weekend, and I offered to dog sit for her. Went out to a bar with friends that night and met a really cute girl. She wanted to go back to her place, but it was about an hour away and I had the dog to think about. So I invited her to my ex-girlfriend's house and we spent the next 24 hours or so fricking in my ex's bed. A few years later, I married that girl from the bar. Worked out pretty well. I once jacked it to Veggie Tales Lameo. Fap with friends in a cemetery. Honestly speaking, getting hard by reading these comments is the most horniest thing I've ever done. One time I was really horny, so I asked my wife if we could have sex. She said yes. Total win, no regrets. Fapped in the same room as family. One time I drank Gatorade. Sexted with a friend where there was a mutual interest. Then we had our first kiss couple days later during a game of Truth or Dare. We were in our early 20s, but our friend group was dorky AF. Then fricked for the first time the next day. We wound up being FWBs for nearly 2 years. Made an apple pie and sipped tea while wearing an oversized cardigan and reading about Norman Rockwell. Please subscribe if you liked the video, it really helps the channel to grow.